All right, thanks so much. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Washington Fire Weather Briefing for July 10th. I am Logan here in Seattle, and joining with me is Valerie over in Spokane. And just to reminder that this meeting is being recorded. By joining and participating in this session, consent is being given to the recording. And please keep cameras off per the NOAA Privacy Act statement. And starting, we'll take a look at this morning's satellite imagery. You can see here, not too much over Washington. We do have some low clouds here we'll take a look at. But generally, zonal flow across the area behind the frontal system we had yesterday. Though we do have a ridge just offshore, and that will be moving into the area here tomorrow. And then taking a closer look at this morning's satellite, we do have a good marine push across western Washington. So good marine stratus across the area, leaking a little bit over to the east side. And it looks like we do have some mountain waves over portions of northeastern Washington and northern Idaho here. And then Valerie, I'll turn it over to you to talk about some lightning we had yesterday.
Yeah, so we had some showers over northeast Washington, more across north of the border into Canada, but some of those showers got strong enough to produce about 4 strikes of lightning in Washington zone 700 across. I don't think it was a little more to the northeast of the Hope Fire. So hopefully things are okay there yesterday, but we will see showers through today as well. There are some light showers occurring across northeast Washington and North Idaho. Similar to yesterday, some of these showers may get strong enough for some isolated strikes of lightning, about 10 to 15% chance across North Idaho this afternoon, but it would be very isolated in nature.
Awesome. So we'll go ahead and move on into the matrix, and we'll start with western Washington here. Today, marine air, not too much of concerns. Tomorrow, with that ridge moving in, we will warm up and dry out, and we'll see those RHs dip back into below 30%. So some elevated concerns, particularly across the lowlands of western Washington. But luckily into the weekend, we'll get some more onshore flow, and we'll kind of moisten back up a little bit, but we'll still remain pretty warm. And then we'll look towards starting Tuesday. It looks like our flow will start to turn offshore, so we'll really warm up, dry out, and we could potentially see some breezy winds through the gaps in the Cascades. But at this point, we're still monitoring that to see how exactly that looks. I'll turn it over to you now, Valerie.
Thanks, Logan. Yeah, for today, I did upgrade Eastern Washington for today to elevated, primarily for dry and breezy north winds across central Washington. We'll see breezy west to northwest winds across much of Washington, eastern Washington and North Idaho, but primarily in central Washington down the Okanagan Valley into the western Columbia Basin. We'll see those drier and breezier northwest winds for today, and then also showers across northeast Washington and North Idaho, as I mentioned. Should backtrack, we are not expecting winds to be as strong as yesterday, but it still will be pretty breezy across central Washington. And then for the weekend into early next week, as Logan mentioned, we will be trending warmer, and for Saturday and Sunday and even to Monday, we'll see that push of onshore winds with breezier conditions across central Washington and through the Cascade gaps in the afternoons and the early evenings. And then when we get into more of the Tuesday to Wednesday time frame, as Logan mentioned, we are monitoring potential for the stronger north to northeast push of winds. And it'll be still warm and dry, and we'll keep monitoring that, especially Wednesday into Thursday. There might be more of a next week of a wind shift once that thermal trough potentially shifts to east of the Cascades, but still a week away, and we'll just keep monitoring that as time progresses.
All right. I believe that's all we have for the slides, so we'll move on. Luckily, no hazards today, no red flag warnings today, which is nice. So we'll go ahead and move on to the weather, and I'll turn that over to Valerie here.
Yeah, so today RHs will be a bit higher compared to yesterday across the region, but still see relatively dry across central Washington with RHs in the low 20 to mid 20% range. And then if we look at the winds, we are really just messaging that breezier conditions across central Washington with winds 10 to 15 miles per hour sustained, maybe upwards isolated spots up to 20 miles per hour, and then gusts between 20 to 30 miles per hour through the day. I saw even Eastern Washington is experiencing some winds of 20 to 25 miles per hour this morning, and expect that trend to continue through the middle of the afternoon into early evening, and then decreasing later on this evening. And then for prop thunder, as I mentioned, mostly showers will be isolated and just light, but there will be maybe this afternoon just some localized enhancement of showers that would allow for some isolated strikes of lightning across far northeast Washington and North Idaho. That's all I have for that.
All right, thanks so much. And really quick here, I'll just show for Friday for Western Washington, excuse me, those RHs primarily across the interior south of Seattle, and also for portions of the central and southern Cascades of Washington. Those RHs dipping back down below 30%. Just south of Seattle, where we have those, where we'll start to dry out tomorrow. And then we'll move on to trends here, and we will start with Hosemi for Western Washington. So you can see here, starting tomorrow, we'll start that warming and drying trend. You can see Friday here, we're a little bit lower, and then with that increased onshore flow, we'll see better recoveries and a little bit higher minimum RHs. And then going into next week, where we see our flow start to turn offshore, we start to get some of those easterly winds, and we'll see those RHs really dip down into the 20s across Western Washington, as well as those poor recoveries with those those max RHs just reaching perhaps 50 to 60% across the area. And just quickly, even to show in the lowlands here, where we'll have better recoveries with the onshore, or with the winds there, but we'll still see min RHs there dipping into the 30s and potentially the 20s through this region. And now I will turn it over to Valerie.
I would say thanks, Logan. The trend is pretty similar for this week across Eastern Washington and North Idaho. I wanted to point out Spring Canyon specifically because our largest fire that formed yesterday is in that area, but you can see just the temperatures gradually increasing through the week, and those min RHs kind of fluctuating for Friday and Saturday, dipping below 20%, with the maximum RHs gradually declining. I wanted to especially point out the winds. So predominant wind direction, it'll be breezy starting Saturday through Sunday and Monday after today. And then our winds will predominantly be from kind of north, mostly diurnally and terrain driven, with predominant direction from the southwest to northwest. But then as we get into early next week, maybe late Monday to Tuesday and Wednesday, predominant direction does look to shift to the north to northeast through Tuesday and Wednesday. And then as we get into later Wednesday and Thursday, we might see that shift to more the southwesterly direction. So that's just something we're keeping an eye on. If any fires form over the next couple of days, that might be the most critical pattern through this week, with probably some sharp changes in winds once that thermal trough moves over to the east side, if that occurs. But that's what we're monitoring. And then if we look at the hoodoo raws, just to focus on North Idaho again, similar trends with temperatures and relative humidities, but for those winds will be lighter over North Idaho. Once we get into that Tuesday, Wednesday time frame, might see some higher speeds across the Purcell Trench down into Coeur d'Alene, once our models start to really hone in on that northeasterly easterly wind direction. Those speeds might be a little too low right now, but we're keeping an eye on that for next week.
All right.
That's all I
So
have
much.
for the trend.
Thanks. And then quickly, just to wrap up, we'll take a look at the 18 to 14 today climate outlook for end of next week and beginning of 2 weeks. And you can see here, we still have that trend for slightly above normal temperatures, as well as potentially a chance for some below normal precipitation, primarily for Western Washington here. No, that is all I have today for the fire weather briefing. If we'd like to stop the recording, and then after that, we can take some questions.